Hey TCS viewers, Chris Nichols here from the camera store. Welcome back. Now, as you can see and probably hear here in a bit, we are over a major intersection here on a busy road. We're going to take a look at the brand new Fujifilm X70. Now, this is a nice, compact APS-C camera with a 28mm lens. Now, classically, this would be a street photography camera. So today, our plan is to shoot McLeod Trail, an actual street. It's actually been called the ugliest highway in Alberta. We're gonna try that today. I wanna take some photos of ugly things. I'm gonna shoot somber things. I'm gonna shoot interesting light and soft details, see how it goes. We just did a video from Miami. You guys got a beautiful video, so we've earned this one. Today we're gonna shoot bleak street photography of an actual street on the X70. One of the things that really impresses me about the Fujifilm X70 is how much they've been able to cram onto such a small body and still keep it functioning well. I mean, it's not all perfect, but overall I like the way this camera feels. The grip for your fingers for small hands is actually really good. If you had bigger hands, I could see that being a problem. They fit a huge screen on here, totally touch screen, totally articulating, very, very nice touch. I do like the aperture control. It is very tactile, but I will say you just have the two knobs here to actually grab on and turn it. Otherwise, it's almost impossible. And in some situations, when your hand fits on this, it's going to be a little bit of hunting to find that and turn it. And that could be a little bit slow, slowing it down. Tiny control ring on the front, but I like it. I've set it up for ISO today, makes it easy to handle. And of course, exposure comp, shutter dial, all quick. It's kind of hearkening to the vintage feel that Fujis are embracing. Overall, the camera's easy to use, easy to hold. I like it a lot. I'm enjoying the lens, here on the Fuji X70. It's an 18.5, 2.8 on an APS-C camera. And what I like about wide-angle lenses like this is, first off, it's tough to get depth of field. I know, you're always getting everything in focus. It's hard to get those soft backgrounds, but 2.8, we get some separation here. And of course, it's also more about the perspective. Getting close to something like this, I can really push the background far away. So even though you can still see it, it is separated, The other nice thing about that is with a wide-angle lens and 16 megapixels, I have the room to crop a bit, and then I can get a more compressed perspective if I want to. But overall, nice lens, sharp images. I'm always haunted by this kind of light. It's just, it's a ray of sunshine, a beam of hope in an otherwise concrete and mundane life, or something like that. All right, guys, so I am literally shooting street photography right now because indeed this is a street. And it's not a puddle this time. This is like old tar on the road, catching the light, not a puddle. So maybe it's just the wide angle talking, but I'm actually really liking the autofocus on the X70. I mean, it's predictable, it's fast, point to point is good. It's not a Panasonic, but it looks like Fuji's really stepped up autofocusing with their entire line of cameras. And I mean, you're gonna really enjoy that, especially for street shooting. There are some features of this screen on the X70 I like. I mean, you can go full selfie, which is fantastic. It articulates fully. It's not bad in the bright sunlight. It's a 3-inch TFT, but it's only just over 1 million dots, and compared to the competition, that's actually quite low. It's funny because I'm looking at the text and I can actually see that sort of pixelated nature to it. When I look at it, it's not the end of the world. It's just, remember that the X70 does not have an EVF, and that would be a really nice touch. Something pop up like a Sony RX100 or something. I know what Fuji's thinking. They're thinking you're gonna put an optical viewfinder right there in the hot shoe. Of course, it is lined up perfectly with the lens, and I know that's a cool classic way of doing things, but having an EVF would have really set this camera apart from the competition, like, the Coolpix A, which is now kind of out of the picture, the Ricoh GR2s and whatnot. But anyways, I mean, it works. Now, when it comes to color, of course, we're shooting the streets of Calgary here, McLeod Trail. We've got beautiful dead grass yellow and rich and vibrant concrete gray. and maybe a few other splashes, but all joking aside, yeah, the color's not great today, but the Fuji always delivers good color. In fact, check out our S5 retrospective video, because we played with that, and even 10 years ago, their color profiles were just beautiful. Now, the X70 has a lot of different color profiles. You got your Provia and your Velvia. I've actually been shooting Astia today, just because I want to make these muted colors look even more somber and muted. Why not? Let's go to the extreme. You do have the black and white modes with the color filters, but for some reason, even though this is a newer camera, we don't get the across profile that the X Pro 2 has. So I guess we'll have to wait till the next model to get those. But all in all, great color, easy to set up, easy to use. Now, when it comes to video on the X70, well, first off, being a fixed wide-angle lens, I mean, it's not going to really blow people away. And of course, this is Fuji's older technology, 16 megapixel sensor. The video is going to be uninspiring. Unfortunately, we're not getting anything like we would get on the X Pro 2. I think we're going to see that in the next few phases of camera. And also, on a side note, I'm standing in dog right now. If you want to put two and two together, I'll leave that up to you. All right, so you can see sun on my face. I got a bright backlit scene here. ISO 800, I'm turning the dynamic range optimization all the way to 400%. And damn, actually very nice, all fitting in the histogram. I can work with that. Now I want to talk about the electronic shutter and the mechanical shutter on this camera, because it's important to understand how this works. Now, it is a leaf shutter, and I mean, that's nice because it's quiet, there's no shake at all, but it does have issues with how fast a shutter speed you can get based on what aperture. I mean, wide open here today at 2.8, I can only go to about 1250th of a second, and that's just not enough to hold back the extra light. So you do have the electronic shutter, and you are going to want to use that quite a bit. The only downside, though, if you look at the shot here, of course, rolling shutter, you get these strong, weird diagonals if things move or the camera moves. So you got to be careful with that. It's easy enough to set it up so it seamlessly changes back and forth, but I'd really like to see an ND filter on this camera, and they didn't build one in. That's kind of a pain in the butt, so you're going to have to use screw-on NDs. Fine, but then these aren't cut for filters. You have to use their adapters. Extra purchases, more bulk, so I'm not a huge fan of that. I still like the stability of the leaf shutter, but the NDs are going to be an issue. Just found another thing that I don't like about the video controls on this camera. First off, you've got to set up your movie setups for ISO separately from stills, so when you switch back and forth, everything switches on you. The other thing, this record button, I know a lot of people always complain about record buttons being too easy to hit. This record button is impossible to start and stop. You got to jam your finger like this to make it happen. It took me forever to even get the video to stop going, so weird, man. Don't shoot video on this camera. All right, guys, so this will be a quick one. I mean, X70's high ISO performance, it's already a known quantity. We've seen this sensor before, and it is very good. I mean, Fuji do a decent job with ISO performance. They used to have a clear advantage over the rest, but now the competition has caught up. I'd say it's very similar to a Ricoh GR II, something like that, similar megapixel count. Now again, we've got the X Pro 2 sensor out, 24 megapixels. That really does step up the game, you know, and that compares with cameras like the Nikon D70-200. Here we're getting similar ISO performance, but we're not getting the higher resolution. So overall, you're gonna like it. It's comparable to today's technology. Here we go now, quick frame rate. Let's see what we get. So the camera's shooting 8 frames per second, but it's only gonna give you a 4-shot burst. I mean, it's not gonna be great for like sports photography or anything, certainly for street photography, capturing a facial expression or something, but this is not an action cam. 3 to 4 shots, that's it. All right, so we did a little bit of a test here just with the 18.5mm lens on the X70. As you can see here at 2.8, nice center sharpness. Those corners do get a little bit soft, but once you get to f4, it's all nice and clean right across the board. So all in all, a very usable lens in wide open conditions. Now, the X100 is a similar kind of camera that Fuji makes, but I guess what Fuji is trying to do now is make a very capable camera in an even smaller package. You know, compete with things like the Ricoh GR II, pretty much its closest competition. And I like that they've done that. I mean, you know, when talking about the Ricoh, we've got very similar lenses, we've got very similar image quality, but there are some important differences to note. The Ricoh, I'd say, focuses maybe a little bit slower now than the Fuji X70. I was pleased with the autofocusing on this camera, but the Ricoh does have that snap-in focus, and I do like that for street shooting. Image quality wise, I like the X70's JPEGs, but the Ricoh shoots DNG, and sometimes people have a little bit of problems getting good quality out of the Fuji RAW files, so the Ricoh does have a nice advantage there. Low light performance almost the same, lens sharpness pretty much the same as well. I do like the touchscreen though here. This makes the X70 quite a bit more intuitive. This camera's easy to use. My only complaint is this record button. It's in such a weird place, you know, so hard to push. I'd actually dedicate a different button to starting and stopping movies, but then that makes this useless. Now the Ricoh has a really nice button interface as well. The only problem I have with it is the menu. It's not that it's bad, it's just, it's very techy, it's very in-depth, and I think beginner users will find this camera easier to use. The only other really appreciable difference is going to be the price point. You know, the Ricoh is going to be around $750. This is pushing over $900. I think that's justified with the touchscreen capabilities, the faster autofocusing, but just consider, guys, that for a couple $100 more, you are into X100S and X100T territory, and that gives you a viewfinder, fantastic if you like the 35mm lens, and you get some more features there too, so let's keep that in mind. So the X100s do represent good value. They're a very vintage looking camera, and that's popular, but I think the X70 gives you a very handsome looking camera, very practical, straightforward, and it is definitely much smaller. That's who this camera's for. If you like the 28mm focal length better like I do, you're gonna enjoy that as well. Overall, the camera's a good stable platform. There are some things that I didn't like. Some of the button placements, you know, the record button, and of course, the screen res isn't great. You want to have a separate viewfinder. That's one of my biggest problems with this camera. But overall, if you want something compact and cheerful, this is going to do it for you. Now guys, check out our Instagram feed. We've always got photos up there. Follow us on Twitter, talk to us. We always appreciate that. And please subscribe. We want more subscribers. I think we're doing a pretty good job and we deserve it. Also remember, we're shooting a lot more often now, so you got regular content coming out all the time, and that's for you guys at home. All right, thanks so much. We'll see you very soon.